The cafe was packed, as always. Kai weaved through the crowd, cursing under his breath. It was too early for this much chaos, and all he wanted was a coffee before his back-to-back lectures drained the last bit of life from him. With a glance at his watch, he sighed. Late again. The line inched forward painfully slow, and at the front stood someone who clearly had no sense of urgency. A guy in a crisp white button-down was tapping away at his phone, oblivious to the frustrated murmurs behind him. Kai clenched his jaw. It was one of those mornings, apparently. "Seriously?" Kai muttered, just loud enough to be heard. "If you're going to text your friends, at least move the line along." The guy looked up, raising an eyebrow with the slow precision of someone who was already over this. "It's not my fault they hired sloths to make coffee," he shot back, voice calm but laced with sarcasm. Kai blinked. Something about the smug look on this guy's face irritated him instantly. Of course, he thought. Entitled, cocky, and oblivious. Just my luck. The line shuffled forward, and before Kai could stop himself, he was glaring at the guy's back. Then it happened. Ren, because that was his name, though Kai wouldn't know that until later, grabbed his coffee just as Kai shifted forward a bit too quickly. The cup tilted dangerously, and in the next second, hot coffee splashed all over Ren's pristine white shirt. Ren froze, eyes wide with disbelief. A drop of coffee rolled down his collar and dripped onto his neck. For a split second, they both stood in stunned silence, neither quite believing what had just happened. "Shit," Kai started, but what came out instead was, "Okay, that was, mostly your fault." Ren's head snapped up, brown eyes narrowing. "My fault? Are you brain dead or just blind?" Kai threw his hands up. "I mean, who wears white to a cafe anyway? That's just asking for disaster." Ren let out a humorless laugh as he yanked a napkin from the counter, blotting at the spreading stain. "Right, because clearly I should have planned my wardrobe around your lack of coordination." They locked eyes, Ren's gaze sharp, Kai's defiant. Neither of them was backing down. "Maybe if you wore normal clothes," Kai said, crossing his arms, "this wouldn't have been such a big deal." "Maybe if you learned how to walk," Ren shot back, voice icy, "we'd all be safer." The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife, drawing a few amused stares from nearby customers. The cafe manager glanced over, frowning, and both of them knew they were a hair away from getting kicked out. Ren gave Kai a final glare before snatching his bag from the counter. "Entitled idiot," he muttered under his breath as he stormed toward the door. Kai huffed in frustration. "Yeah, well, good luck with that attitude," he called after him. But Ren was already gone, leaving behind the faint smell of coffee and frustration. The incident should have been the end of it, just another annoying encounter Kai could forget by the time he got to class. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. When Kai arrived at his lecture hall, late and out of breath, he scanned the room for an empty seat. As he slid into the nearest one, the professor cleared his throat from the front of the room. "Before we begin today, let me introduce the student presenting the group project you'll all be working on." The professor gestured toward the podium. "Ren Takahashi will be leading this semester's first project." Kai blinked. No way. From the front of the room, Ren turned, and the smirk that spread across his face when he saw Kai was nothing short of wicked. "Well, well," Ren said softly, his voice carrying just enough to be heard by the students nearby. "Looks like you'll be seeing a lot more of me." Kai stared, speechless, as Ren leaned casually against the podium, all traces of earlier annoyance replaced with something that looked suspiciously like amusement. The lecture dragged on, with Kai's thoughts stuck somewhere between disbelief and regret. He was never going to live this down. And as if things couldn't get worse, the professor's final announcement hit him like a slap to the face. "For this project, you'll be working in pairs," the professor said with a grin that seemed a little too pleased. "Kai Matthews and Ren Takahashi, you're partners." Kai's head dropped onto his desk with a thud. "You've got to be kidding me." As the class began to empty, Kai gathered his things, praying Ren had already left. No such luck. Ren stood near the door, arms crossed, waiting with a look that said he was thoroughly enjoying this. Partners, huh? Kai shot him a weary glance. Don't sound so happy about it. Ren shrugged, smug as ever. I'm just glad I won't have to clean up any more coffee spills. Kai groaned inwardly. This was going to be hell.